Okay. Hello and welcome, everyone. I have with me today the one, the only, ThePlaceMatt, one of the developers of Storybook Brawl. Hello, Matt.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going great, especially that I have just won my last two brawls, and they were just like pieces de resistance when it comes to the effects that were happening. So, thank you for making this amazing game that has been on my mind for the past. Wait, how long has this been out? A couple of months, 3 months, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we're approaching 3 months here in another week or so. Yeah, it'll be 3 months. Yep.
Okay, so thank you for taking the time. It's 5 a.m. It's 5 a.m. over there. So
Oh, yeah.
and
And I
it's
got the time wrong. I woke up an hour early.
yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking the time, joining me to talk about Storybook Brawl. The game has been an amazing hit so far. But could you first please tell us a bit about yourself to the viewers? What do you do exactly at Good Luck Games, the developers of SBB? What are your design credentials, gaming credentials, favorite games? Just go ahead. I mean,
Yeah.
first of
Great.
all, I see that behind you, these are you have two huge pictures, sorry, artworks, pieces of art with Sad Dracula and Humpty Dumpty, and I guess we will be talking about these two characters for sure. But first,
Yes.
about you.
Well, yeah, I just want to point out since you bring up the paintings here, the bat you see over my head, he's going to be one of the stickers for one of the new hero skins, and it
Wow.
looks really good. It's the bat taking a selfie of himself, so it's super cute. By Kate, our Russian super artist who does a lot of the phenomenal
Okay.
pieces. Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm Matt Place. I started off in the gaming world as a professional Magic player when it just began. So I got to be lucky enough
Word
to
about
start
the
playing
village's
Magic when
acclaims
tournament
spreads.
prizes were maybe $100 if you could find a good tournament, and
Mhm.
then suddenly they launched the Pro Tour, and I couldn't even understand that they were giving away $1 million in a single year. So I did that for a
Exactly.
few years, and then I chatted with Richard Garfield about getting a job at Wizards, and that
Mm.
happened. So I did that about for 7 years. Got to work on Magic, and then I bounced around a bunch on different games. Worked on I know some of the games you've played. Like
Mm.
I was the head of design for the internal pieces of Eternal before it was launched. And then right before it was launched, I moved over to Blizzard, worked on Hearthstone. I've also worked on a bunch of board games and
Wow.
oh, the shirt. I love it. Yes.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes, I
and
got it.
I love it. And then other paper games. Yeah. And actually have my name and design credit for one D&D product, which makes me happy. Love D&D.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So
I have
yes.
to ask which board games? I love board games. Which board games? Tell me now.
Oh, is it called Seven Seas? Mike Elliott was the lead designer on it, made by Hasbro.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I got to do some design work on so I love deck building games. Got to do some design
Same
work
here.
on DC deck building game, and I think the first expansion
Mm-hmm.
as a team member slash playtester,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and a few others that we made at Hasbro that I'm forgetting now. But yeah, I did a little bit of playtesting. If you've played Vegas Showdown by Henry Stern, Run Rewards,
Unfortunately
uh,
not.
yeah, it's a good one. Uh, but yeah, these are all like playtester roles, not
Mm-hmm.
actually me being the lead or anything. But yeah, it's fun getting to work on board games. Yeah,
Fun fact, I have also been working on my own board game, card game slash deck
fun.
builder. I have been working
Yeah,
on it for, well, 4 years, 3, 4 years, and then a year's
nice.
break, but it's not getting anywhere. I mean, in my opinion, it's tested after 500 games, but we're not talking about that. Let's talk about you. So, what do you do? How big is the team at Good Luck Games, and what do you do there exactly?
So yeah, the team is 7 people right now. We're
Mm-hmm.
about to hire our eighth. Uh, Trevor, our buddy, is starting here on the 20th. So we got 11 days. Very
Mm-hmm.
excited about that. And he's going to help us with some of the features that we can talk about later that we have planned. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
tons of stuff planned. Yeah, I do a lot of different things. I got to do the kind of the art director role.
Mm-hmm.
it's 95% the artist, right? Because they are phenomenal. But yeah, coming up with ideas and a lot of what we like to do, like we see here above you, the kind of twisted version of Princess White, just fun things that kind of take the storybook tropes and make them a bit more interesting, new ideas, right? The robotic green giant replacing Jack Giant from Jack and the Beanstalk, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, and yeah, do the design. So it started off as me, Raptor, Josh Uderlayton, and Matt Nass, right? The three of us started, and we had the idea of like, hey, auto battlers are great. It's a new genre. There's not really, they're super fun, but it's funny that none of them are built from the ground up yet, right?
Yeah,
they're all
exactly.
inside of the game.
Yeah.
And yet they're super fun, right? And my buddy at Hearthstone, who I worked with actually for all 7 years at Wizards too, Mike Donay, he made Hearthstone Battlegrounds. And he started off with the first version, with the team, of course. And he started off with the first version being all the cards came from Hearthstone proper. This huge design constraint, and yet it was still super fun. So we wanted to build one from the ground up, had ideas of how to kind of add some depth and complexity, wanted to keep the game, as simple as possible in terms of getting into it, but wanted to add a lot of depth on the back end. So we knew what we wanted to do in the beginning. Josh had technical skills so that we can make these kind of test versions, right, prototypes, and then eventually bring on the super engineer, Jean Combert, who is he actually, I knew him through he would do teaching at UW here in Washington State for game design. Well, he's also very good at software engineering.
So it's all connected. It is all interlaced. Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's funny how true that is. But yeah, so he helped us get there. And even though we only started in early 2020, somehow we launched the game here in mid 2021.
So only like 18 months, give or take?
Yeah.
Wow.
Actually a little less.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Great. 7 people, guys. 7 people, 18 months, amazing game. Seriously. Clap, 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 clap.
Yeah, it's So good job, Josh and John, the engineers who've been working on it, and our buddy Cesar, who joined us later and has been helping us with a lot of the features. Yeah.
Okay, so in your opinion, what's the coolest feature of the game? Like, you're explaining this to a friend for the first time. What is your unique selling point, aside from the fact that you made it and it's awesome?
Well, so when I explain it to people, especially people who don't play these types of games, I always say, hey, fantasy football draft, right? Fantasy draft for sports meets chess, right? So not only are you drafting your characters, right? And that's basically the key selling point, right? Is draft characters from Storybook. But then you also get to place them, and that's where a lot of the tactics and strategy come in.
True.
So I think that's a good way to describe it if you're describing it to a friend who doesn't play these types of games, right? It's you draft and then you brawl, but you also have some decisions to make on the actual placement. And that resonates with people. But yeah, I think the key selling point really, probably number one, is it is a deep strategy game with great thematics, right? Like these are characters that you probably know.
Yeah.
And the mechanics often are cool representations of those characters. And then it's actually a deep strategy game.
Yeah.
And
it's so easy to get into.
Yeah, great. Yeah. We want to make it even easier. So we're going to work on a tutorial.
How is it possible? Oh, tutorial. Okay.
Yeah, the tutorial is something we've kind of got mapped out. We have a lot of features coming. But yeah, we could talk about those. Very excited about. But yeah, the tutorial is one we want to time up with going to phone. So it's something else that we've thought about from the beginning is us as gamers, we tend to be PC, I think. I probably play on the Xbox a bit more than the rest of the team. But we all do phone from time to time, right? Sometimes you're on the bus, you're waiting. Where are the good deep strategy games that actually are built for the phone? And that's something we think we can actually pull ahead of maybe some of our other favorite games because the number of actions you have to do, where's my hand? Number of actions you have to do on the phone are so much less in this game, even though it's still deep strategy, than some of our other favorite games like Magic the Gathering, right? Arena. So this is a big opportunity for us is to have a deep strategy game that's actually totally reasonable and fun to play on a phone. So we're working towards that as well. Yeah.
Okay, but
Yeah.
was your consideration when you were designing it also that the game is amazing to be streamable on Twitch or YouTube, castable, made for tournaments, for competitive play, etc.? So it's
Yes.
great visually.
Yes, that is a big part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to that point, we got to work with our buddy Ruben, who from Spain, who has later been pulled away by a very giant AAA company. So sad for us, but good for him. We're all happy for him. He made the A+ visuals that you see.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorite, I think, is Peter Pants when you level up in the
Yeah.
clouds.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
so he made all of those, and yeah, super good. And a lot, yeah. So a lot of our thinking is, okay, how does it look if I tuned in? I don't necessarily know the game.
Mm-hmm.
How does it? What does the game look like? And it looks like a lot of smashing into each other. So we
Mm-hmm.
want to make that look good, right? We want to have special effects when spells go off or certain characters' last breaths go off. And we want it to be, once you start to get into the game, once you go,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, I kind of know the characters and I'm getting into it. We want it to be high drama, right? And this is, we want you to be on the edge of your seat, right, when you're playing or watching.
Yeah.
And just to back up a little bit, that's something that I think is very interesting with the rise of Hearthstone, right? The timing of Twitch being something that we all
Mm-hmm.
started tuning into and watching, and
Yeah.
Hearthstone looking so good, right? The other game I might play as a card game at the time was Magic Online. Does not look good.
Nope.
Magic.
Nope. Do you remember Magic Online MODO when they had these kind of 3D tables and the avatars were sitting one across the other?
Yes, you would have tables of one royal assassin sitting with 7 tigers for some reason at a table doing a draft. It was hilarious.
Or the 24-hour downtimes because things are not happening. that I remember distinctly, unfortunately.
Yeah, I played Infinite. Yes, so much Magic Online.
That is where I first learned the 3 letters that start with L. In the middle there's an S, and in the end there's a V. Louis.
LSV. Got it.
Oh, okay. I
I
think I played him back then. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, but let's take a step back now. You said that you wanted to do a game from the ground up.
Right.
And that's the very first idea for the game. Which elements were there at the start and which ones did not make it in the end? Because we have 4 main pillars here. Like we have heroes, characters, treasures, and spells.
Right. Yeah, so we started with wondering if we should do that many card types, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we're all Magic players, right? Heavily invested in Magic. What if we brought in some of those elements to an auto battler? What would it mean? How would we do it?
Mm-hmm.
And so we started off with you buy treasures,
Okay.
just like spells. And John came onto the team. So we've been playtesting that way for actually, I think, more than 2 months. John came on the team and was like, hey, instead of the rewards for tripling B, whatever they were at the time, what about treasures being there? And that kind of went to our goal that we talked about earlier, like the high drama.
Mm-hmm.
That also let us put more power into treasures and more unique designs into treasures, which we want to add more of, right? But things like Heartwood that kind of change the whole interactions of other characters. So it's just a perfect way. Treasures more rare, but more special, right? So yeah, I think that was a huge upgrade to the game system. We also love Chandelar. I don't know if people.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, way back, like early 2000s or late 1990s. I don't remember, but I played the heck out of it.
Yeah, when was it? I think it was late 90s. I think you're right, but it might be 2000. Yeah, played the heck out of it as well. So much fun. And one of the fun things in there is this idea that you do a dungeon run with your Magic deck, and your health total starts at whatever you have. And as you take damage or gain health, as you win, you get to keep progressing through the dungeon, but your health total remains the same, right? It feels like a little bit of a roguelike.
Yeah, one of the first ones, yeah.
Yeah. And so Josh prototyped that early on, where you're fighting the auto battler, but you're going through multiple enemies to see how far you can get.
Okay. So like PvE, right?
Yes, PvE. And so there was some really cool, fun stuff going on there. Treasures stick from game to game, right? We had different ideas. But eventually we're like, hey, let's get the core gameplay of PvP down. And then we can explore stuff. So who knows where we'll go with PvP in the future.
Interesting, yes.
Right. But if somebody told you, hey, there's a new game on the market that is a roguelike auto battler PvE, that you can see how far you can get. I know I personally would be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to play. Right. So
Yeah.
there's got to be something there. We might go back and explore that, but
Cool.
yeah, but we explored a few different directions, but mostly I would say we were always very focused on the current version you see, which is the PvP, matching expectations for a PvP auto battler.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the most OP card or card combo in the early development stages that is still here, maybe a bit nerfed, but is still here? Was it Tiger Wild Growth? Was it Trophy Hunter? What was it?
Yeah, what was it? I'm trying to think. I mean, we've had a lot of characters that are still super good that in hindsight you go, wow, they used to be better. What were we thinking? Yeah, what was the most busted? I am not sure. Baba Yaga used to be 4 cost, and she was, and you know how good Slay is now, and just having her that much earlier really obviously put Slay at a much higher level, right? Because a lot of Slay is built up over time, right? Like what used to be Chupacabra and is now Vampire.
Yes, Vampire.
So you could do that, right? The more likely you were to get to those 80s or 100 plus numbers. But yeah, generally for balance, we're kind of a mix of, some Magic Pro players who have good guesses initially, but we also want to push the limits.
Yeah.
So we tend to design in that space, right? Of like, okay, what do we think we can get away with? If we can get away with it, it'd be best if we knew what that top limit was. So we don't make as broken of things as maybe, somebody who hasn't done as much balancing of games, but we still try to push the limits.
Yeah, we can see like
Baby Bear.
No, not Bugbear. But for example, with the recent change of Prince Arthur from a 4 cost to a 3 cost, and right now every lobby has 3, 4, or 5 royal players, where before it was like maybe 1, maybe 2, and they like faded out.
Right. Yeah. Part of our goal there also with Miri King Lion coming in is to get more variety at the end game, right? But now it might be we're too much of too many people making it to, let's say, top 4 with royals. So we will readdress that. But that's a great example of us trying to push the limits. What could we get away with?
Yeah, exactly.
And, and it's funny, because my first 7 years of designing was working on Magic the Gathering, where once you are
once something is
right, it's like it's out in the wild, right? And for my last 2 years, I was actually lead of the FFL, which is the balance team. And so the mentality of
the future league.
Future league, that's right. Can we do this? Are we sure? What's the range of possibilities, right? If it goes wrong, how wrong does it go, right? The way you have to think with paper versus here, where it's like, let's say that we make a mistake like Baby Bugbear, or potentially, in hindsight, the mistake of King Arthur going down to level 3. It still creates new content, right? We change it, and sometimes a day later, maybe 2 weeks later, but it still is like new things to explore as players, and then we can fix our mistakes later. It's such a different world. It's just hilarious.
That's the beauty of digital card games, and I love the fact when a company doesn't only nerf things to the ground, but they buff stuff so that cards, characters, treasures that previously were not played right now are played very much. And I talked about this on my stream just before the interview. My best example is Fairy Godmother. When it used to be a 4-costing 2/2 that gave +2/+2. Let me just show it on the screen. Give me a moment.
+2.
Yeah, it was not played almost at all. And then you buffed it to what you can see here, a 4-costing 3/3 that buffs 3 health. And right now, it's everywhere in a good mid-game. And it's annoying. It's fun, and it's annoying. And I believe it's exactly where I would like it to be.
Yeah.
So, really good job on that.
Yeah, I like that buff. Will she stay this high power level? Who knows? We may change her. It's funny, when she was 4 for a 2/2 with +2 health, when we first introduced her, I think Josh had the idea for her. She was actually very good. So it's just kind of a measuring stick of like some of our power levels. Some of our total attack numbers have gone up throughout the playtesting and since launch. But she is definitely one of the best mid game. Like, I'm going to start winning fights because I got 1 or 2 copies of her or upgraded her. Yeah.
Okay, given that you're the person responsible for conceptual design on your team and naming of cards, how did you get to the idea of using the generic fairy tale IP instead of working on your own IP on your new world? For example, in Eternal Card Game, there's Myria, then there's Zalta, then there's the Bastion, then I don't know what's in the future. I was joking at one point the next set is going to be called Internal, where they shrink all the science and they inject them into the bloodstream of Caiaphas. And oh wait, there was a movie about that already. Never mind.
Funny.
But anyway, what's about the generic fairy tales?
Are we talking about Inner Space, Martin Short?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
35 years ago, that movie came out. Yeah, so real quick, side note on Eternal, did a lot of the flavor stuff for Eternal pre-launch. And yeah, one of the big debates was I actually wanted to go down the path of myth originally, but it was heavily contested internally. And part of the reason is like, what does it mean to match expectations, right? Like I had ideas for certain characters from myth, and if they don't match, does it seem wrong to people? And so I think what we did right here that maybe we weren't doing right initially with Eternal is, hey, we're not going to match, right? When your first exposure to a character is it's a robot instead of a giant, right? But it's a it's clearly not intending to match the expectations. I think it takes people on this like kind of path of like, oh, okay, let's see what else they've done, right? So still our world, right? Like Princess White has taken over for the evil stepmother is not the story, right? Here she is, and here's what she looks like. She's kind of Vampirella, right? A bit. So people are kind of expecting twists. And I think that helps a lot with this, with these properties that are, public domain. A big reason I like going public domain too is not only are these characters just awesome, but a great way to design cards is that top down, right? The hey, what would this character from story or myth do in a card game? And if we made up our own world, if we got really wacky, I don't know if you ever heard of the game Dreamblade, but anyways, we worked on Dreamblade. My friend actually one of the leads for that, which was just too wacky of an IP, right? It was like paladins versus pair of scissors that were animated, just the silliest things you can imagine were in this IP. And part of the problem is your expectations are kind of just like, well, anything can happen. I don't know what's going on, right? But here, if we have Humpty Dumpty and we go, oh, the nursery rhyme can't be put back together again. What does that mean mechanically? And I love that stuff where it's like we find good mechanics that match up with a character that players already know, which leads to, I think, potentially great designs, right? And if we had the Star Wars IP or we had something that people knew, we could do that. But when we don't, but making your own IP and trying to have those connections where players go, oh, that's what I expected that character to do, it becomes very difficult. So when we made the decision to kind of go, what could appear in a storybook, right? What did I maybe read about or get read to when I was, the ages of 5 to 10? That's what we want to pull in here because that's what people remember fondly. And then how do we play mechanically? How do we play with those characters in super fun ways is why we went the path we did, right? Because you can match and twist expectations. Because there are expectations, it makes it, more fun, I think.
Well, you already talked about Humpty Dumpty, one of the paintings behind you. The other one is Sad Dracula. And I believe one of the most frequently asked questions is, why is Dracula sad? And I believe it was answered on my chat a couple of days ago. Why is Dracula sad? Because he cannot find Shadow Assassin on level 3. Never, ever.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we Shadow Assassin out of the pool when you're Sad Dracula. No, not true. Not true.
So what can and cannot get in thematically? I mean, there's a ton of things from the Arthurian legends, but also treants, dragons, and black cats, and Humpty Dumpty. So
right.
What's the limitation here?
Right. So the limits, technological stuff, right? Obviously, we have a little bit of reference to that, right? Skip kind of looks like he's working on something higher tech. But it really is, it's trying to be what you would expect from a storybook for, what was my past, right? It was probably still what you can find on shelves today. Characters from that category being in the game, right? So you will have Hercules interacting with Humpty Dumpty potentially, right? Things that are not necessarily in the same world previously come together in this world, right?
Okay.
Which adds fun too, I think. But yeah, the limits, we are, we're still kind of exploring what the full range is. Part of this ties into what future expansions will be. Like, where do we want to go? Do we want to push the limits even further when we go to creating new tribes, right? Character types, etc. We'll see.
Oh, new tribes, you say? Eggs. Eggs. Why is it always eggs? Okay.
Only one thing right now. Yeah.
Okay, how do you usually design cards? You go for mechanics first, for theme first. You said Humpty Dumpty going top to bottom, right?
Right. Yeah. So, oh yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
So is it always theme first and trying to get the mechanics there, or for example, okay, so you have a bunch of, let's say, you have a character that is now Lordy. How do you come to the fact that he is a dwarf?
Right. I would say probably more than half the time it's thematics first.
Cool.
So very early on, one of the first designs that was a good example of kind of us exploring what characters are in this game, Romeo and Juliet, right? Josh had the idea of exploring that, kind of that story of, her finding Romeo and then Romeo seeing her. And so that was very top down, right? Very what would the thematic mean when you translate it into game mechanics? Same with Humpty Dumpty. And so we try a bunch of those, and we're kind of trying to guess at like what thematic would also be fun mechanically, right? We don't want to be like, oh, it's very thematic, but not fun. And so, but often those come to a dead end. So it is trying to find the perfect puzzle pieces that go together, right? Which is not always easy, and have some that will probably upgrade over time. But and then probably 40% of the time, maybe less, it's mechanics first, right? So have a new idea for a last breath for a character that I think will be really fun. We're gonna kind of test it here, but it's a great example of we have no idea what character is supposed to go with this mechanic idea, right? So we find somebody that fits. We have some ideas of a ghost or something that could be really good for it, but yeah, I think it is better if you can find those perfect puzzle pieces that go together where the theme is very much the lead. Just feels better, and if the game is fun with that, that's the best case scenario.
But you can, for example, have a board of old ideas for character abilities and fairy tale characters that don't have cards here yet, and at one point you can just, oh wait, this and this matches. Correct.
Right. Yeah. So that does kind of happen when you're when you have these cool abilities that maybe you've written down. You're trying to brainstorm, like we do brainstorm sessions of like which characters don't we have yet that we should. But often those lists are in people's heads. They have an idea that they've tried to work on. They've been trying to work on that. Maybe something brings it together. You finally think of the right character that it could be, or make up a character from scratch, like we've done a few times. But yeah, I'm super happy with how often it comes together well.
Nice. Okay, so let's talk about some more specifics about the cards that are here. Which card that is in the game right now would you like to receive a buff, and what buff? What kind of a buff?
Oh, well, it was Geppetto, so we did that.
Because Geppetto is your Discord avatar.
Right, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So why was he the worst hero in the game when he's my Discord avatar? But yeah, I think Copycat's new design is one that I don't know if buff is the right word, but it's probably worth doing either a redesign or a buff on, just because it is so hard to make it work. So that'd probably be my number one target of like things for us that are currently exist that we need to think about. Yeah. But yeah, it tends to be that, when one of us has an idea for something we want to buff, it happens. So usually that list is pretty short.
When it comes to Copycat, I do have a video on my YouTube channel that is Muerte, Copycat, Hermes Boots, Good Boy in the Back. And the rest is good. So insane buffs, like insane buffs. So it can work. It can work. And I remember a couple days later after that game, someone asks on my chat, so Copycat is never played, is not good. And I said, wait, there's a video coming. Okay, when it comes to numbers on the cards, I remember one of the balance patches just did some number changes, like Rotten Apple Tree from 015 to 018, Neon Sea Terror from 88 to 1010. I thought it would not matter, but right now, for example, I sometimes do feel the neon and just play it on the board when I get the treasure as well. But how do you come to these? I mean, you said that usually you just start with a number in your head and see how it goes. But do you also run like tons of simulations to get the number right, or do you get some data from us playing? How does that work?
Yeah, so balance in general for these types of games is mostly through playtesting,
Mm-hmm.
and you try to get a feel for it, right? And one of the skills is you play some games, and before you pay too much attention to the results, you kind of get a feel for like, okay, how good was this card? What was its
Mm-hmm.
potential? If we did this multiple more times, where do we think it would land in terms of total power level?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have lots of games, obviously, with Rotten Apple Tree and Neon. Neon's actually interesting too because part of it was not just what does its stats need to be to get into play, but is it a good idea for that to happen, right? Because or is it kind of neat that it just goes to your hand most of the time and you don't play it? Well, I think it is better for it to be played some of the time, right? I think that's a more interesting design where it's like not just kind of a delayed
Mm-hmm.
spell treasures. And so we know that he had room to grow because of how
Mm-hmm.
often we're all putting him in our hand,
Mm-hmm.
right? So he could be better, right? Was pretty easy to conclude. And specifically on Rotten Apple Tree, that's one that's I guess the term is scamming, but are characters that can get there for you when you're like, oh, my opponent's way ahead of me. What can I do to make a comeback?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think it's especially important to push the limits on those characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Medusa being probably the most common one that we play with. It's
Scam.
important.
Scam.
Yeah. It's important that you feel like you have a chance to win. And that, by the way, that's a big part of the design philosophy
Mm-hmm.
here is kind of the randomness and you might be way ahead of me in a game, but I still have hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
The randomness gives me hope.
Mm-hmm.
These characters that, are the Medusa style characters that
Mm-hmm.
can take down a 5,000, those still giving me hope is a big part of why I think the game is fun and replayable,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is because
Yeah.
you have outs. Right. If you have no outs, why keep playing?
Yeah, exactly. So, can you confirm that Medusa was a gift to you from the Nigerian prince?
What? I
Uh,
cannot hear that.
because it's a scam.
Oh, I see.
Sorry,
I see.
bad joke. Let's just and get to the next question.
All right.
So,
All right.
I always say that card games have inherent variance to them. Some have lower variance, some have higher variance because, well, at least you have to draw the right cards. So how would you say how RNG heavy is Storybook Brawl in your opinion?
I would say it's high on RNG.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting just to look at a couple other types of games that a few of which I got to work on back in the past. One is Magic Tactics. I don't know if people have played Magic Tactics. This came out I think 10ish years ago. It
No.
was basically a board game version of Magic the Gathering,
Mm-hmm.
where position very much mattered, right? Imagine a huge chessboard, and you're moving your planeswalker around and summoning characters, right? And anyways, the point being that the RNG was very low in this game because even though it was still Magic cards,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't ever draw lands. You always had a handful of spells, and a lot of the outcome was determined by positioning,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was more chess than it was card game, right? Can you get around this corner and kill the opponent's character, et cetera, et cetera?
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, the reason I bring it up is because it very much felt like, okay, my opponent's better than me. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do. And that would punch you in the face, right? And that wasn't necessarily what you want for a game that's like coming from a card game IP,
Mm-hmm.
is something that's more heavily in the chess space where the RNG or the variance is low. So the skill is kind of keeping people from being able to play against each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Another interesting angle, right, that's dangerous, right? We
Mm-hmm.
want to, we were just talking about with outs and whatnot, you want to feel that drama and the potential that, hey, even though you're better than me, I might still be able to come out of this and win a
Sure.
game. Another angle is just what does a lot of RNG mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you said, hey, we're playing a dice rolling game, I don't know if people have played kind of minis games, right? Battletech type games. But
BattleTech,
as you roll,
I still have it. BattleTech, AeroTech.
okay, great. Yeah. Yeah, and Warhammer, all these games where you might, position matters in those games too. But what I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about is like the dice, and some of those games use a lot of dice, right? And when you roll dozens of dice all at once, like you do in some of these games, it actually lowers the variance,
Mm-hmm.
which is an interesting angle, right? Because yes, you might roll a 6 on that first one, but overall, you're probably going to get some hits and some misses that match the average, right?
Mm-hmm.
Closer to the average as you roll more and more dice.
Yeah.
Kind of what you have happening here, right? Like I got unlucky on 3 of my attacks. I needed to attack this one person. But overall, there's so much randomness going on.
Yeah.
It tends to move towards the mean, right?
It's the law,
Or
the law
sometimes,
of large numbers or something like that. So
right?
the
Yeah,
more you play, the variance averages out. So for example, today when I was playing, I got a second place, then all my variance went down the drain. I got a couple of bottom fours, but then in the
right,
end I won 2 straight out. So
right.
yeah, it evens out.
Yeah, and that's part of the way to look at it is, expect to get unlucky, right? Like
Mm.
I know that, no, I'm going to make some good choices in my next game. There's a chance I'm going to get 8. It's amazing how many 8s I get.
Hear
But that's
that? Hear that,
part of,
guys? You have to
yeah,
expect to get dumped on by
yeah,
RNG.
right. And part of it is the psychology too, right?
Hmm.
Like, how much are we kind of paying attention to our lucky moments versus our
Hmm.
unlucky moments,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I keep
If I
saying that
have,
all the time.
yeah, yeah. And if I have 9, if in a certain brawl, that's really close, and there's 9 attacks that could go my way or my opponent's way, am I only focusing on the one that went against me? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I see people playing auto battlers, they're like, oh, that was a 50-50. And it's like, yeah, it was a 50-50 at the end, but maybe the player had to get lucky on the 3 50-50s that came before that
Hmm.
to even get to that
Exactly.
50-50, right?
Yeah.
So selection bias affects the feeling of randomness. But yeah, I think the game is highly random, but that's part of why it's so fun and replayable, and
True.
it makes the puzzles a bit harder. I don't know if
Hmm.
people have watched. We actually, LSV and I did an interview with Richard where we talk a little bit about this, and Richard and my friend Justin Gary have done talks on this. What is randomness? Why is it good for games?
Hmm.
Obviously you can do too much. Obviously it can be frustrating to the point where you don't enjoy the game
But
anymore.
that
But
also depends on the person. If they get
yeah,
frustrated by events like that.
right. Yes, very true. And I think that's something that's people who are drawn to these types of games, right, or
Hmm.
just card games in general, tend to have a higher threshold for that. But yeah, talking about how it makes kind of puzzle solving more interesting, right? Because the
Hmm.
puzzles are not as simple, right? If you remove all variants, like in tic tac toe, and have a simple system, it gets solved too quickly, and then the boredom just hits you so hard. It's
Hmm.
like, oh,
True.
neither of us can ever win. I very much do not want to play this game again, right?
Hmm.
As opposed to chess, where instead of the randomness coming from dice rolling or card flipping, it's more in just, oh, what did I think of? What did you think of? Right?
Hmm.
Where's your brain at? Where's my brain at? But it's so complex that you kind of get that the equivalent of randomness there,
Hmm.
right? In that it's hard to predict what the future will be, right?
Hmm.
And so those I think are very important for a game like ours that we want to be super replayable,
Hmm.
right? We don't want people to go, oh, I played that game for 5 hours, or what do we play? The average game that we download that's a single player, right? Maybe you play 40 hours. We want to go beyond that. We
Hmm.
want to make it fun inherently, right, with the
Hmm.
card file for hopefully hundreds of hours for a lot of people.
Hmm.
And then, of course, there's other things we need to do to keep that replayability, like we're talking about adding new features,
Hmm.
adding new tribes potentially, new treasures, etc., buffing, nerfing, etc. There's a lot of tools, but yeah, one of our main goals is this game is super fun for people playing today and the same people playing a year from now.
Okay. I mean, I personally can withstand, usually psychologically, without too much salt, several losses in a row because I know that later I will get that one perfect game where everything just connects and it's
Right.
awesome and amazing and I can put it on YouTube.
Yes. And keep it
Uh,
on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay, on a variance note, since the beginning, since the game came out, people have been posting screens with insane stats. I mean, it used to be, for example, Celestial Tiger and Wild Growth growing a broccoli. I also have a couple of videos on that. Or a Trophy Hunter increasing Good Boy stats to the limit to hundreds of thousands and billions, or an insanely large Echo Wood. And some people are saying that's crazy. That's literally crazy. And at one point I was thinking, okay, why didn't they do it like they, for example, did it in Eternal, where the stats are limited by 999 health or attack? But right now, keeping it loose and insane means, okay, I have an Echo Wood that's 2000, but they have Echo Wood 3000, the new model. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, were you intentionally putting the curve out so that the level 6s just go out of whack and the numbers are crazy. They don't even fit in on the cards.
So we love that. It is I think it's really fun, right? The idea that like the sky's the limit, right? What can my character get up to? When it comes to balance on that, it's actually kind of confusing, right? Because a lot of people look at that and they go, wait, my biggest guy was a 40-40. Their biggest guy was a 3,000. How is this fair? Right? And it's like, well, they got ahead of you, but even if they had just had a 80-80, they still would have beat you.
Exactly.
Right? So there's some amount of fun that can be had with just the crazy numbers without actually changing the balance, right? Because very often when I'm going to get fourth place, my opponent's 3,000 could have been much, much smaller. I still would have had no chance.
True.
You start over, right? That's a big piece of this puzzle is you can get to those crazy numbers, but once you get first, it's all starting from scratch, right? Obviously, it wouldn't work if we're talking about a persistent MMO where somebody has a 3,000, and somebody else has a 2020. That just doesn't work, right? So the starting over, it's not roguelike, but it's that kind of space where you can do crazier, kookier things because you have the reset. It is funny though. We get some people, right? They're like, "Hey, this is obviously not a balanced game because
exactly."
Because
Echoed, nerf Echoed, and I remember you nerfed Echoed by changing it from a 0-1 to a 1-1. They nerfed it finally.
Yeah, it's really funny. I think we did that for the right reasons, but it also was like, oh, calling for a nerf on Echoed, and we're giving it +1 attack.
I was laughing so hard when I read that. The nerf is finally here! Or is it? Okay. When it comes to the game, it's also cool that there were 32 heroes, now 2 additional ones, Miri and Fallen Angel. And there are 8 people in the lobby. Everyone is getting a chance of getting 4 different ones. So technically, when there's 32 heroes, all of them are in the pool. And the first slot is always the free hero. But how did you choose which heroes were free and available for everyone? I mean, did you just go for the easiest ones, or just the 6 worst ones, and Geppetto and Merlin?
Right. Well, Geppetto was one of the worst. This buff
used to be.
Used to be. It was for ease of play, right? And it doesn't mean that they're easiest in terms of they don't have depth or power, but mostly it's just if I'm a new player, what hero could I pick in that first slot that kind of gives me a path that's clear, right? And our base, the ones we had very early on, Mrs. Claus being super easy to understand. What should I do when I draft, right? Also very easy to understand. That was part of our target there. Oh, I'm getting so tired. And so we've also kind of used her as kind of a baseline. Like we want her to be part of the meta. What does that mean? The rest of the, that kind of defines the range of the power level of the other heroes. And then the kookier heroes, we wanted to either hold back, right? We still have, I think, 11 heroes that are finished that we're excited to
11 heroes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first.
And those tend to be the more complex ones, right? So we're kind of ramping up the complexity of the game as we go, as we add more heroes in. So that was the goal. And then just on that point, we kind of mix that up a bit when we changed the second slot to be any of the heroes, right? Not the brand new heroes, not Fallen Angel Fury, but any of the other 24 heroes. It does up the complexity for the new player, but I think that overall, which is something we're trying to keep an eye on, right? They always have that first slot of the simplest heroes. But I think the huge upside is like there's so many heroes you can try out for free.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That really helped people in their minds go, okay, yeah, this game is very much a free-to-play game, right? Which is a big goal for us in the beginning because we'd rather have the big player base than have our business model figured out.
Right? So do you intend for those heroes to not be picked as often by players in the legend ranks? I mean, aside from the Stray Merlin or Geppetto, because every time for the last couple of weeks, I'm doing chat votes. Who should I pick? And like, if there's Krampus, there's one pity vote on Krampus or on Mrs. Claus. And those are not picked, usually.
Yeah, certainly the intent is not that they're not picked. I think, once you're in your 100th plus game, characters like Trophy Hunter, even if the power level's not always there with him, can just be more fun too, right? Like the multiplayer heroes can be more fun as well. So I expect the pick rate to be lower on that first slot. But when you're just first starting out, you really need something that.
Yeah, like good characters. Okay, so those with the those with the yellow frame. Okay, they are bigger. Okay, great, nice.
Right.
But are you considering buffing them at one point? For example, Mrs. Claus to a +1/+2 and Krampus to a +2/+1, for example.
Yeah, actually, those specifically we thought a little bit about. Would prefer not to. Would like them to be the baseline so that we can kind of be our anchor. So certainly not anytime soon, but over time, kind of where does the power level of heroes drift to? We'll see. But yeah, not currently being talked about.
For example, the new hero Fallen Angel. When you have 3 good characters, your board has +2 health. When you have 3 evil characters, your board has +2 attack. And people are calling it like the straight out better version of Mrs. Claus / Krampus / Jack's Giant.
Yeah, it is.
Pay to win. Pay to win.
Yeah, well, hopefully not pay to win because you can also.
No, just kidding. Sorry.
And speaking of which, we have some cool ideas on that we won't go into too much detail
about paying to win. How much?
Of how we do rewards for games and like introducing the pass with the free track and stuff. I think we'll really
nice.
Feel good and rewarded. Yeah, that's part of our goal. But yeah, so a big piece of the balancing of a character like Fallen Angel is how much does the early game damage matter, right? Because if you don't have the buff immediately, or if you're kind of playing around, and you're like, oh, I only have the +2 attack and it's turn 4. Well, does that matter much? Are you losing a fight because you don't have the +2/+2 yet? Overall, I think she is meaningfully stronger than Krampus or Jack's Giant.
She's also more flexible. Maybe not more flexible than Jack's Giant. Okay.
Oh, sure. Right. But yeah, her power level is, sometimes you're not going to have those the bonuses early. And how much does that early game damage matter? That's also an interesting tuning piece, right? Is, as the damage early matters more, characters that take a little while to get going are weaker, obviously. It doesn't take that long. She's better than average, but it is kind of, between her and Jack's Giant, for example.
Getting back for a moment to the complexity of heroes and the variants, like a couple of weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I did a tier list for this game because everyone is doing a tier list of which heroes are better, which heroes are worse. Mine was a bit more complex because for me the rates were for early game, mid game, late game for each of those characters, but also I included a number from 1 to 5 for complexity and for variance. For example, complexity on most of those slot 1s was just 1 out of 5. It's straight out easy to play. And for variants, like treasure heroes like Horde Dragon, like Galahad, like Celestial Tiger, these are the high variance characters. And I remember one specific comment. It was Pied Piper. Let me just get up Pied Piper as the hero. So Pied Piper, I rated him like straight in the middle, like 3 out of 5 on almost each characteristic. And his biggest hero power is lowering the variance. Because you have an extra shop animal, so lowering the variance is his hero power, and that's it. So that was really like a cool epiphany for me. Like, oh, so that's what you wanted to do. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? And if your playstyle is that way, if you want to feel it less, right? Yeah, Horde Dragon is probably one of the most where you feel like you could just fall on your face and not get anywhere.
Yeah, like it's for me, it's usually number 1 or number 8, like Excalibur or Dunk Pile.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, for me it's Trophy Hunter. I get so many 8s trying to do the spirit build. Yeah.
Next question: is it possible to get a more comprehensive rulebook for the game? Like when I approach a game. Like when I approach a board game, I read, that's my personal preference. I read through the rulebook before I consider buying it. I was the first person in my group when I was 13, 14, something like that, when I started playing Magic the Gathering. I was the first person in my group to actually read through the whole rulebook. I mean, also, it's English. I'm from Poland, so not everyone's English was decent. There's a new fad card game called Flesh and Blood. And before I started playing it, I read the whole comprehensive rulebook, like 60 pages, without knowing anything else about the game. So, and because there's a lot of intricacies in the game, like, okay, how much damage is being dealt? We know that from tooltips because you introduced them like 2 months ago, and that was an amazing feat. Because those tooltips answer most of the easy questions that someone can ask about the game. So when you're waiting for your match to start, you learn the basics about the game. But there is a ton of intricacies, like, for example, the order of things happening at the start of turn. Is it Ashwood Elm? Is it Round Table? Is it Robin Wood? Some members of the community have tried working these things out. For example, an official version would be much appreciated. Can we count on it? Or maybe if the community works with you, maybe we can come to some sort of an arrangement. I don't know. Were you thinking about a comprehensive rulebook at any point?
So, yeah, we aren't going to do a comprehensive rulebook. Part of the reason is there's so much chaos in the game that the use of it, right? It's like, what just happened? Am I following along correctly? That comes more from I've played the game a decent number of times than reading a rule book. And so, just to give a little bit of my background on being a pro player in Magic, I was very much, a lot like you are, where I knew the rules, right? Like, this is the early days of Magic, by the way, were the Wild West. There was who knows how rules were going to get ruled at different tournaments. And very often it was me explaining the rules to the head judge even at Pro Tours. But the downside to part of it too is that we're trying to make the rules match what expectations are and what's best for the player who owns the card. Maybe you've kind of described it that way. But yeah, so, and part of that means we need to, people didn't expect this, or people are surprised or challenged or upset by a certain way of rules working. We want to change it. So part of it too is it's going to flow a little bit, right? We'll have a conversation with Josh, who's basically the rules manager of the game, and he wants to do it X, Y, Z. Because he's been seeing, feedback, or he's got ideas, and we're going to change it. So part of it is we want to keep improving the game, the rules. As we introduce new cards, we might have to change something elsewhere. So it's kind of moving and living anyways, with the overall goal being that players' expectations are generally met until we get to these corner cases that are quite confusing. But if you kind of go with, hey, I think my card will work, that will probably be the best path to like guessing at the rule. It's funny because, we all started off, of course, playing the auto chess games that were more RTS based, right? So they come from, like Underlords coming from Dota 2, etc. And those it's unbelievable how hard it is to figure out what the rules are in that game, right? Like, that my character says these things, right? And that's part of why I love the card game version of an auto battler, right? Is I read the card and I'm 99% sure what it does, right?
Yeah,
I'm like, okay,
exactly.
I get what it's me. And when I lose, I go, oh, I lost because this guy got a buff and he had range and he attacked my character, which killed him before I could attack back. And then I only had this left, right? Yada, yada, yada. As opposed to the finale of an Underlords game or a TFT game where I'm like, I guess I won, or I guess I lost. So,
or what the heck happened?
A lot better than some other auto battlers. But yeah, that's part of why we won't do a comprehensive rules. But the FAQ, we want to keep upgrading that,
Okay, cool.
And making sure that's, useful for people. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and in the recent patch, was it? You also had a point of, we changed the interaction so that now Robin Wood works better with Ashwood Elm, etc., etc. So yes, I know you are working on it to make it better for all the players. I know that the chat has been asking a lot of questions. Most of them were about buffing cards or nerfing cards, and I don't think we will get to the specifics. I would like to ask more general questions, a couple more, if you still have a moment.
Absolutely.
you already mentioned the FFL in Magic, the Future League, and I remember back in the day I was reading about this. It's like so the people who are testing Magic, they are like 2 or 3 years in the future, so they know what will be happening because that's how far ahead you have to think. So how far ahead have you planned the roadmap for Storybook Brawl?
Well, I would say we're about a year out. So there's a lot of big features, some of which are coming literally in, let's see, 10 days. And some we are hoping, we're talking about, just had a conversation with Matt Nass about one that we're talking about for March 2022. The one coming in 10 days, by the way, I don't know if we've announced this, but it's group play. So you can play with your friends. One of you starts the game. There's a name for the game. You all can join the game if you know the name to that game.
Yeah, baby!
That should be great. But just friends chat, just all the things you would expect from a normal game. We're still working on. So we have what you would expect from a roadmap, and then we also have probably a few that are a little bit more surprising. But yeah, we've got some cool plans. Yes.
Okay.
And just with the game itself while you're playing, right? Also has a lot of big ideas there too. So.
Can you shed some light on what we can see in the future of the game? Like, do you have anything you can share with us? Like, I don't know. You already said about the friend lobby.
Right.
We know that you're working on a mobile version for early next year. I believe on the Discord there was some talk about we want stats, we want more stats. But for example, what is there going to be an official Twitch overlay? I also heard some talks about that, about the game itself. What can you tell us aside from the friend lobby in 10 days? You heard it here first.
Well, I'll say some of the things you mentioned are coming, and we probably will have better announcements for those once we're able to talk about them more. Yeah, we're making some deals with people that should be very inspiring and exciting for people. So Twitch overlay type of direction. Yeah. Oh, and I see Telemokos here in the chat. Hello.
Yes, more tournaments coming.
As he mentions, yeah. And one of the things we're kind of in not the brainstorm session, but figuring out what does it mean to have automatic tournaments too inside of the client that maybe qualify you for some of Telemokos's events. Figuring out that as well. I've been chatting a lot actually with Richard Garfield about what kind of events he would like, and so we have cool ideas.
What is his username in the game?
Oh, he is Feldegriff.
What? Oh, Feldegriff, obviously. Okay. So I guess in the future we will see more heroes, characters, treasures, etc. How would you go or will you go about expanding the pools for those? Because, for example, the more characters of a certain level there are, the lower the probability is of getting one, of getting a triple, of getting a treasure, etc. So how will you do it?
Well, so one of the big challenges is as we add like the hero pool, right? If we released a hero every, let's say 2 or 3 weeks for the next year or two, eventually the hero pool would be potentially too large. So what do we do there? That's one of the things we're kind of going to figure out. We have some ideas to solve that. But one of the cool things about a game like this is what does it mean to change the environment with different pools, right? So what if we had, I really like how Mike did it on Battlegrounds, or at least the team over there did it on Battlegrounds, which is, hey, this time there's no mechs, right? So they're just changing the pool so the environment's different. What does that mean? I think you could do that to a much more meaningful degree, right? Like, hey, this new, we're doing the fall season, and in fall, we've taken out these treasures, added these new treasures, with this specific goal to change the gameplay in a specific way, right? I think I can mix it up a lot, even without adding a ton of new cards. You can make a very new, fresh environment.
Yeah.
We'll explore things in that direction. And I think our best tool for that is new, interesting heroes, right? Heroes that really change up the draft value of all the characters is a very cool way to have, okay, now I'm this new hero. I have a totally different draft experience. It's great that heroes just as a single entity can do so much, add so much variety to how you draft.
And a good example of that was the special one-day event about several days ago, the one-day event where you could have played with Baby Bugbear. And
Right. What?
the game was totally different. Just one day with Baby Bugbear, and the game
Yeah.
was turned on its head. People were rioting.
Right.
Where are you with Baby Bugbear right now? I believe someone told me that LSV said somewhere that it's back in the lab.
Yeah, it is. We will definitely bring Baby Bugbear back in some version.
Hmm.
Baby Bugbear trying to find its mother is. We have some ideas still in that same space, right?
Hmm.
Like part of the problem, even before you get to power level, part of the problem with that design was just so many level sixes,
Hmm.
right? It
Yeah.
kind of did a lot of the core mechanics of the game. So, what if Baby Bugbear was just finding you fives until you upgraded it, and then it could find you
Hmm.
sixes? Maybe some ideas in that space, or
Hmm.
uh, or maybe just a total redesign. But I love the art. Actually,
Yeah, it's great.
two art pieces behind me.
Hmm.
Just got a whole bunch of the art printed off on canvas. So
Oh.
very happy. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Looking
Oh.
at
Okay.
volleyball here over my fireplace to my left. It's great. It's a really good piece.
Oh my goodness. Today I finally got a game of turn one polywoggle, procking the sleigh into adventurer, procking the sleigh on turn two,
Oh,
being level
sick!
3 on turn 3. Oh my goodness.
Wow,
So that's
I've never done
polywoggle.
that. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that's the thing about this game. There's so many moving pieces. So much can happen. So much crazy stuff. Like there's new things to explore every single day, every single game. And speaking of new things to explore, will we see more PvE content or PvE modes or PvP modes? Maybe a two-headed giant, or for example, I'm Celestial Tiger. My friend here is Wonder Waddle, and with our powers combined, we take two animals, we turn it into a treasure, and that treasure is upgraded and is used twice.
Oh
So,
yes. So PVE is probably further off, right? We don't
mhm,
have a specific idea of what we want to do with PVE.
okay.
Like I said, if somebody made the Chandelar roguelike version of an auto battler, I was really into it. But yeah, for team up for two-headed giant, we are going to make that format. The specific rules we're still playing around with. The simplest version, which I think is super fun, is we share a health total, and
Hmm.
we damage is based on how we did combined, right? So if you and
Hmm.
I are on and I took 7 damage, but you dealt 10, then we take no damage and we deal 3 to that
Hmm. Okay.
team's health total. Another version that's a little bit more, complex is our treasures help each other,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Kind of fun. So exactly where we launch it, I'm guessing we'll shoot for the simplest version at first, play with that, and then see where we want to go from there. But
Okay.
team play is so fun. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
I,
yes,
getting back to other auto battlers, I remember I got burnt out from Underlords really fast, but then they introduced the team battles, and it was really fun for me for a moment because I can send you this unit and you can send me that unit, and we can combine it much easier.
right.
So yeah, and
Yeah, I
yeah.
played a little bit of Underlords teams too
Mm.
with Matt Nass, and absolutely loved
Mm.
it. I did find the trading a bit too much because I needed to
Hmm.
know what Matt needed all the
Hmm.
time,
Yeah.
and I had a lot less experience with the game than Matt, so it was harder for me to keep track
Hmm.
of everything. It became very complex.
Yeah.
So not a huge fan of that specific mechanic, although I'm
Okay.
sure if it was two Matt Nasses who knew the game super well,
Just clone him again.
but
Uh,
then it's not the spirit of Two-Headed Giant to have two of the same.
Getting back to unexpected interactions in the game that you can find on every single game and playthrough. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday or maybe today, on my board, I had a good dwarf.
Oh wow! Let's see, you
Did,
had a dwarf.
yes, I had a good, it was bossy. I had a good bossy. Do you know how I got a good bossy?
You Bell's influenced into a True Love's Kiss.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay. He's not a fake. He knows about the game. Congratulations. That's exactly what happened. I already did a screenshot. I already wanted to post a bug report, and then the chat went, "Didn't someone get Bell's influenced first?" So yeah,
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah. When you first said it, I was like, "Uh-oh, what
yeah.
happened?"
No. It was legit. It was fun, but it was legit for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. What else can you tell us about the future of this amazing game that is Storybook Brawl?
Well, so speaking of good or evil dwarves,
Hmm.
that kind of shows some of the space that'll be fun for future heroes, right?
Hmm.
What does it mean if all your dwarves are evil and have +1 attack, right? Let's say a hero was created that way. I'm not saying that is a hero, but just
Please say it
changing
is a hero. Please say it
yes,
is a hero.
what cards matter to dwarves can create some new fun too, right? And I
Hmm.
love that you do that. But yeah, we have big plans. We have so basically we're super thrilled that the game has been growing, right? When we first launched,
Yeah.
by the way,
Hmm.
we were like, if we have 180 players playing at the same time, we think the queues will fire.
Hmm.
Hopefully we'll have 180. And we had like 250 that first day we got up
Hmm.
to. And it has just been growing to literally we had 10,
Yeah.
10 times that on Monday, right? It's a holiday here in the States, but
Oh.
yeah, we these gigantic numbers, and it's great too because we did some paid streams in the beginning, but haven't done
Hmm.
those in the last few months.
Hmm.
So the game is still growing. It's wonderful, and a lot of what we're excited about is some of the deals we're making and our future for getting the word out there. Uh, is the sky's the limit on like how big the game can get. So yeah, we're very excited
Yes.
about the
Yeah. I
future, and
mean. Hmm.
just adding things like mobile is going to be huge
Hmm.
for
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, these are the factors that make it that make it very promising for this game. It's really easy to get into. As we already talked about, the IP is easy to get into. Okay, so this is Princess White, but she's a vampire-ish, as you said, vampirella.
Right.
So what could she be? Um, and then you step in, and there's this complexity of where should I position. Like I even did a video called Medusa in 5, where 5 is currently, I think, my second favorite position for Medusa. It's not 1 2, it's 1 5. And the replayability is here, and then you can queue with some friends, and it just grows, and it's easy to watch. I mean, I started playing it, and then I stopped playing it. I stopped streaming it. I'm going to my living room to rest. I sit on the couch. I flick on the TV. I go to Twitch, and I watch other people streaming it because it's that fun to watch.
Yeah,
So
that's
amazing
great.
all over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the chat has had a ton of questions throughout this whole thing. I just skipped over all the balancing questions because we will just see it in the future, and yes, they are working on it. But there are a couple of things that I wanted to read out from another random guy. Can you tell him that I run the game on Linux using Proton, and that is very cool, and I and the Linux community are very grateful?
Oh, good. Yes, that's great. I'm glad it's working. The I know we've had a few bugs in that space too,
Mm.
so hopefully those have been solved for you. But yeah, that's great.
Shui said, "Could you ask him about renaming some of the cards to avoid lawsuits? Did you get pressure from Disney and other sources for Evola instead of Cruella? Cruella?
Oh, yeah, that was just me kind of going, "Hey, this is too much," especially with the
Hmm.
movie. But yeah,
Hmm.
we specifically are choosing to do art pieces and names and characters that are either unique so that they're ours, right? Or ones that have existed, from sometimes more than 300 years.
Hmm.
But yeah, the Grimm fairy tales, etc., right, are all public
Hmm.
domain.
Yeah.
Even though other companies have kind of claimed them for their own, they
Hmm.
are public domain, right? So,
What about Lovecraft? Everyone loves a Cthulhu here and there.
oh yes.
Oh yes, yes
Oh
indeed, Fatagan,
yeah.
Fatagan.
Oh, well, we got a new. This isn't Cthulhu, I guess, but it is an octopus. We have a new art piece for Feed the Kraken, and it is
Oh.
it's the Kraken with his bib on, and he's got his spaghetti twirled uh, in his tentacle, and yeah. Anyways, that's coming
Oh.
soon.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Next question is from Malos Ragdos. Are there any considerations of introducing different sets of minions in the future? For example, in one game you get the current set, and then the next one you get a set based on Asian mythology or something like that.
Oh yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that Asian mythology, doing the kind of the demons, right? They're not
The Oni.
in the Oni space could be awesome.
Hmm.
Um, the I love that space, right? Like so many animes explore that. Princess Mononoke, space of like, these spirits that just, I don't know, just have these cool vibes to them. I think would fit the game. There's a lot of space. We've done a little bit of that. I don't know if people remember the old art for Southern Siren, back when it was the essentially what is a Asian mythology
Mm-hmm.
evil, the drowner, the mermaids that will
Mm-hmm.
drown. But it had that kind of Chinese demon mask. Anyways, we have some art for that, right? Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
Lightning came in that space. Um, yeah, I love that stuff. Yeah, but yeah,
Okay.
we want to explore some cool new tribes in the future. Yes.
One question that I didn't write down was uh, Turkish Delight still best artwork in the game?
Oh yeah, trash can full of strawberries.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that won't be there forever. I have literally, so as we commission the art, I kind of do it through, okay, what has the best potential to get upgraded,
Mhm.
and so I've been leaving that one alone for now, just because it's kind of funny
Thank
to have a
you.
track.
Yeah, yeah, it's the main
Yep.
meme of the game. Last one from Last Dutch Hero. The game is quite simple now. Do they intend on making it more difficult? I would love to see the game being kept simple.
Oh, well, so more difficult in terms of like able to make your plays and figure out what the cards mean. No, we're going to try very hard not to make the game difficult, right?
Hmm.
We like the challenge being in the fact that it's PvP, of course, right? Your opponent is smart and he's doing smart plays,
Hmm.
but also just trying to figure out the puzzles of, okay, like you were talking about, what's the right spot for Medusa? It's funny
Hmm.
because when we first started playing, it didn't occur to us right away that 5 was potentially the best spot, right? 1 was
One
obviously
and five, depending on whether you have Hermes boots or not.
right. And if you have to get your opponent's good boy before it goes off, et cetera, right? But
Or maybe
uh,
they have an echoed in the back, and your front
right,
lines have to grind one
yeah.
another, and then.
Yeah, exactly what you're talking about is where we want kind of the challenge to
Hmm.
be, right? Depth of the game and thinking about those things, dealing with the randomness, what your
Hmm.
opponent might do. Did your opponent change it up and move
Yeah,
his good to
exactly.
the front because you were so focused on, getting the back row? I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that's a lot of where we think, but we're not going to start, writing text boxes that
Mm.
are, like Ice Cauldron being my favorite example.
Okay. One thing that came up on today during my stream today was not maybe replays in the game, but seeing what other people have, like scouting. And I personally didn't like scouting in, for example, Dota Underlords that much. But what if you, for example, hovered over someone else's portrait, and you had a miniature of the last board they had when you played them the last time around. So, for example, I keep taking notes on pen and paper of, for example, okay, so Skip had Cupid in 1, he had Round Table, he had Echoed in 6. I have to write it down or I have to memorize it, but let's just not as it's not what it used to be. So that would take. Like for example, Paper Magic versus Magic Online, Magic Arena. So turn 1 Swamp Thought Seas, and you write everything down, or in Magic Arena, you can see everything that they have like on the screen. So, uh, is there going to be any sort of scouting in the game in the near or far future?
Right. So the scouting we've talked about is doing it a bit like where we might say they have some simple version, right? Like they have dwarves or something like that,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Or good
Part of the
evil?
challenge, right? Yeah, exactly. Part of the challenge is how much are we burdening people where they feel like they need to go scout, right? Because if we make the
Hmm.
game, if we put the game into a space where you feel like you need to be mousing over your next opponent, that's adding a burden that we believe is too much, right? It,
Hmm.
it takes away the fun for a lot of people. Uh, I'm included in that. I will scout if I need to, right? Type of player,
Hmm.
but I'd rather the game not be built that way
Hmm.
because I can't. It's if you're not scouting, but you're supposed to, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel
Yeah,
good. You know what I mean?
yeah,
You need
yeah.
to keep your base. So how much of a burden is it just quickly mouse over and see that they have dwarves or they are going good? Not that much of a burden, but part of the challenge, like the idea you mentioned, where you had the screenshot of the last one that they did, right? The little
Hmm.
mini. You can remember that, but if you don't want to remember it, could we put it there? Well, part of the problem is what if I didn't know what it was and it looked like what their current army is to me,
Hmm.
right? If I'm a newer player and I don't know what it means, so there's a
Okay,
lot of
okay.
challenge scouting
Hmm. Hmm.
that
Makes
um,
sense.
yeah, that we have to kind of think through all these pieces. but you also mentioned like replay. That is also something we're talking about, right? Because the way that the game basically plays is the server goes, "Hey, client, here's everything that just happened," right? It's just this list of events. So the client is just kind of a replay machine in a sense. So yeah, someday we'll probably have replays.
Everything has been destined.
Yes, yes. It is. Your future is figured out long before you know it. It is true.
Long before you finish purchasing in the store. Okay, I have learned a lot about the game. I have high hopes, and in 10 days we will be getting friend lobbies, so I guess I will be doing those on my streams as well. Once again,
Yeah.
yes?
Oh, and let me caveat that with if everything goes well with testing. We're testing it right now, but of course I could be overpromising if things need to be worked on a little bit longer.
Okay, the plan is for it to be in 10 days, and we believe in you. Okay.
Believe in Josh and John.
Thank you very much, ThePlaceMatt.
Yeah.
Thank you for co-creating this amazing game with the amazing art that you can see right behind him. One last thought. If I were to buff a card, Humpty Dumpty, instead of being an egg, would also be a Puff Puff, buffing all the Puff Puffs. So he's like... So there's a level 4 Puff Puff like there is right now, and Humpty Dumpty is on level 2 and has the exact same abilities, but when he dies, he dies. But he buffs all the future Humpty Dumptys and Puff Puffs, and you can get earlier into Puff Puffs. So that would be my buff.
We can only do it once.
Yeah, he can go once and buff everything, but then later, when you buy your second Humpty Dumpty, when a Humpty Dumpty died, it has +1/+1. Because it got puffed again.
That's funny.
I don't know. Just a thought. Anyway, once again, thank you for the game. Thank you for the interview. Thank you for your time. It's, 6:17 a.m. over there right now? Yeah, oh my goodness.
It's time for me to go back to sleep.
Okay.
I woke up an hour early for this. I got my time wrong. So yeah, I'm so tired. But thank you. This is great. This is fun.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. And everyone, please keep enjoying Storybook Brawl.